kids don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to milk the cows. They just have to do a few simple chores that are their responsibility and no one else's. And if they don't do it, it doesn't get done. How many people's kids have their driver's license? Yeah, is that about one of the scariest days of your life, when you watch your child drive away in your car and you wonder what's going to happen when they're 60 miles away going 60 miles an hour? And you can only hope that you're right there on their shoulder and that you have helped them make good decisions around some of these things we talked about. We only grazed the surface. I made a huge list of how teens can make bad decisions. Let's see, we have on here drug addiction, violence, teen pregnancy. Somebody wants their kids to stay organized in college. I hope that's the worst problem they have. That is fantastic. Peer pressure, that's dangerous. Social incompetency. Lack of self-confidence, several people agreed with that one. Navigating peer pressure. There's a whole category of things that can happen with sex. I don't have to go into it. Use your imagination. Suicide, depression, mental illness, low self-esteem, cyberbullying, as Marianne said. Reliable Bob, the contractor, has a business model where he has 2 or 3 people work for him. And they're oftentimes young people. A couple of graduates of WA have worked with him. In fact, sometimes Bob gets calls. Bob, my nephew, my son, he needs a job. Can you help him? Some of these families we know. And these kids have not lifted a finger their whole life. Do you think they would make a very good employee? No. So Bob took pity on this one kid. We'll call him Jeffrey. Jeffrey wasn't that fond of working. He showed up late, even though his parents drove him to work. He was about 20 years old. He'd been kicked out or dropped out of college. His parents drove him because he had no license. Then he looked forward to cigarette breaks. If he couldn't do something immediately well, if he couldn't master it well, he just, I can't do this, it's no good, and he felt like he was a failure. He often called in sick. And this is only during the 3 weeks that he worked for Bob. Now, my husband hates to fire anybody. And he's hardly ever had to fire anybody. He hates conflict, which is why we're still married. It'd be too much conflict to have a divorce. Thank you for laughing. So it was not hard for him to fire Jeffrey. Jeffrey made it easy. Now, there's one thing that really irked Bob about Jeffrey. Jeffrey's mother made his lunch for him every day. Now, if Jeffrey had been our kid, and Jeffrey could not drive to work, Jeffrey would have had a bicycle. Even in the middle of winter, we would have maybe gotten Jeffrey some extra clothing, make sure he had a good bike. And our children started making their lunch from the time they were in 1st grade. Who said time management? It helped them manage their time in the morning. Whereas chores kind of ground you, they give you that skill. To me, when you do chores, it gives you a genuine feeling of self-confidence. So they might be complaining, but deep down, they want to be invited. Do not give up on your teens, and make sure you have family dinner with them. It's really important, because it will keep them off that list. Trust me on that. I've been on that list. Someone else said connection or belonging? Acceptance. Acceptance. So my whole philosophy is based on the work of Alfred Adler. Anybody heard of Alfred Adler? All right. He was a crony of Freud and Jung. They all founded modern psychoanalysis around 1900. They were in this famous Wednesday afternoon group. It's like, and so we know Jung said the great unconscious is what motivates us and keeps us all together. We know what Freud said. And mother, that's what motivates us or influences our behavior. Adler said, we are motivated by the need to connect, the need to belong. That is one of our primary motivations, especially among children. So when you're a good parent, good mother, so you don't have to be the family servant. You learn to manage people. This whole system is how to manage people. And if you can manage teenagers, you can manage anybody. Right? Because they don't want to do what they're told. They want to be autonomous. They think you're stupid. They're not afraid to tell you that. So when you can learn to manage your emotions around teenagers, we have to understand what will motivate our children. And it is not money. And I'm not against allowances, okay? Allowances are very useful, all right? Because a child contributes to the greater good in the chores, and then they get a benefit, and they get an allowance, and that is limited, and they can use it however they want. Okay, and if they spend it all on candy and they have to make their lunch for the rest of the week, well, they learn something. Some parents feel a little bad for kids and they give the kids extra money. Unless somebody gives you extra money when you overspend. Except Visa and MasterCard, right? They'll give you all the money you want. So you can use money to teach them how to manage money and manage themselves. Because remember, the goal, we want them to make good decisions when they're 60 miles away, going 60 miles an hour. So at the family meeting, you find out what they want to volunteer for. You let them choose. This is really important because you're empowering them. Because what happens when you boss your kids around? They just say, yes, Mom, right? Yes, Dad? It doesn't work so well, does it? Especially not in this day and age. Kids have more rights than parents, it seems. So you ask them, what would you like to do? Even the little ones. In my book, I have listed chores if you need some help. You know, like 2 and 3-year-olds, they can empty the trash in bedrooms. They can sort the silverware. And that's really good pre-reading skill, is to learn to sort the silverware because you're learning to distinguish things. And if one of your kids wants to stretch, if an 8-year-old says, I want to cook dinner, okay. Let's use our time management. Let's plan. Do you want me to get hot dogs and beans at the store? Maybe get out the cookbook and teach them how to plan. Make a simple meal and just work. Where was it? You do it with them. You do it. They do it with you. So you do it with them. You cook dinner with them. You prepare it. Maybe you do half of it. Who cares? Do you know how much self-confidence that can give a kid? To say, I cook dinner for my family? So allow them to stretch, even if it seems ridiculous. And as soon as you can, get them to help paint their own room. Let them choose the color. Let them keep the room any way you want. Who cares? We have this list to worry about. What they wear and how they keep their room is nothing compared to suicide, depression, and lack of self-confidence. If you let them paint their room any color they want, don't you think that'll build them some self-esteem? They made this decision and they lived with it? So that's where the empowerment comes in. So this is what Yin wrote. When I was growing up, I resented you and the chores you made me do. I knew that other children didn't have to do the dishes or pack their own lunches. It was painfully clear to me. I felt like I was your servant. Then, when I was 15 and got a job with Boston Market, and our whole family was known there for being excellent workers with an awesome work ethic. His older brother and sister had already started working there. I realized it wasn't just torture and servitude that you were forcing us to do as children. It was just the way life is. There are dishes that need doing, and everyone should do them. It taught me to be self-reliant and well put together. So many of my friends are having to learn these things in their 20s, even after college, and especially during college with the whole dishes thing. You should see these places he lives. I don't use the bathroom. I go to the gas station because the gas station bathroom is cleaner. That's a laugh of knowing.
It's true.
It's like they have to grow up in their 20s in ways I did when I was 8. So the answer to the question is yes. Now I do appreciate the chores I had to do when growing up.